Boko Haram again attacks Chibok communities. Lagos records first case of Lassa fever. Health commissioners say situation under control. In international news, Boy Scouts of America files for bankruptcy amid hundreds of sexual abuse claims. And in sport, Nigeria 35 others for the Taekwondo Continental Olympic Qualification Tournament.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Boko Haram insurgents again combed through two communities located 6 kilometers from Chibok on Tuesday. Eyewitnesses say the terrorists attacked Karamgulu and Shisha villages, burning houses and other properties. Kibako Community Development Association spokesman Alan Manasseh confirmed the attack was still ongoing at about 9 p.m. on Tuesday. He said deployed troops were on standby to protect the residents from further attacks. Manasseh explained that the residents were fleeing to Chibok for safety, adding that it was too early to ascertain the casualty figures and other details. State House Assistant Director Letitia Dagan has been killed in her Abuja residence by unknown assassins shortly after returning from work late at night. The 47-year-old Plateau State indigene was a participant in an ongoing training for civil servants at the Manhattan Event Center in Nasarawa State. Some of her colleagues testified Dagan's apartment was also set ablaze after the murder. Police say they're investigating an item suspected to have been mistakenly left behind by the assailants. Lagos Commissioner for Health, Professor Akin Abayomi, has confirmed the first case of Lassa fever in the state. Abayomi called for calm while confirming the patient is currently in isolation at the Lagos University Teaching Hospital. Abayomi says the Ministry of Health, through Epidemiology, Biosecurity and Global Health Directorate, is currently carrying out contact tracing to determine those who may have been infected in line with international standards. The Commissioner says there is a need for the public to maintain adequate personal hygiene and environmental sanitation at all times. It says these are parts of prevention and control measures against the spread of the disease in the state. Abayomi further advised to medical workers on prevention and control measures when dealing with patients, stressing that appropriate personal protective equipment like hand gloves, face masks, goggles and overalls must be worn when attending to cases. Niger currently ranks very low globally in measurements of children's survival, health, education and nutrition. This information is contained in a report by the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF. UNICEF says the rankings are based on factors including child survival and well-being such as health, education, nutrition, equity and income gaps. The report says Nigeria ranks 6th from the bottom out of 180 countries on a Child Flourishing Index, just below Afghanistan, Sierra Leone and South Sudan. UNICEF says the report showed the health and future of every child and adolescent worldwide are under immediate threat from ecological degradation, climate change and exploitative marketing practices that push heavily processed fat food, sugary drinks, alcohol and tobacco at children. Controller General of the Nigeria Immigration Service, Muhammad Babandide, says only President Buhari can decide when the closed border would be reopened. He said Immigration Service has no power to reopen the borders except the President orders it to do so. The NIS boss reiterated the partial border closure is in line with ECOWAS rules and is to ensure Nigeria's protection from external forces. The Senate panel on public account has expressed disappointment at the Accountant General of the Federation for his failure to present details of the 2015 Integrated Payroll and Personal Information System for scrutiny. Accountant General Idris Ahmed was unable to answer an audit query lawmakers raised against his office. Committee Chairman Senator Matthew Ugogige lampooned the Office of the Accountant General for failure to provide the IPPIS records. The panel has requested the AGF's presence at its next hearing in 2 weeks.
Coming up, African stories. Libyan peace talks suspended over attacks on Tripoli port. And later, international news. Boy Scouts of America files for bankruptcy over mountains of sex abuse claims.
You are watching ANN.
Today, Niger reached for me to settle Blessing. Blessing for you. When this girl first got this my shop called network, now so on top of NTF 4G phone, now this girl could press. I provoke. I know it's short, reach what time, eh? The ambulance make her tell her to make she mash her act. Come up from my shop. And later I come realize, say this girl go snap am. Put her for inside internet. They take her the two adverts. Now I make customers that they come with my shop. Blessing, I want make you help me manage my shop number 2.
Maremo, but I think Nami and Blessing start work the same time.
Now you and Blessing start work the same time. Blessing, you better start on the T-shirt for top of your 4G MTN phone.
Business makes sense on top super fast and reliable MTN 4G. Join MTN, make you enjoy double data.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Now to news from around Africa. The peace talks that began yesterday in Geneva between the two rival Libyan governments have been called off by the UN-backed government following an attack on a strategic port in Tripoli late on Tuesday. Tripoli's port is a strategic facility for the life of the capital. It is the main access point for food, fuel, and other supplies. The United Nations' efforts to broker peace talks have been largely unsuccessful as fighting continues between the two rivals. Libya's rival government of military commander Khalifa Haftar have been fighting to gain control of the capital, Tripoli, where the UN-backed rival government of Prime Minister Fayez Sarraj is based. But Haftar's forces control the areas of the country where most of the oil is located. Libya State Oil Company, NOC, says it has moved all its fuel tankers from the port area to avoid major humanitarian calamities that could occur should any of the ships be attacked. South Sudan peace talks have deadlocked. Former rebel chief Riek Machar says is not happy with President Salva Kiir's proposal on states. It was first thought the talks would clear the way for a unity government. Patrick Hoyet has the story.
A stalemate in South Sudan's peace process over the very essence of its communities. The government and opposition disagree over how they shape a number of states. President Kiir has offered to return to 10 states, but wants to create 3 new, more independent administrative areas as well. Opposition leader Riek Machar says he will only accept the compromise if the 3 administrative areas are removed.
We need to implement the whole provision of the agreement, especially security agreement. Now at least 90% of the outstanding issues, at least we handle them, like position of 10 states, which has been taken by the president. They can discuss it, they can reach agreement on it. It will not prevent that people should form the government.
The government says the administrative areas will prevent the most volatile communities from losing resources and lands to rival states and buy more time to solve the problem. But the opposition fears it benefits the government. At the center of the disagreement is Greater Pibor Administrative Area. It was created in 2014 as a result of a peace agreement between President Kiir's government and the then rebel movement known as Cobra Movement.
It's the same as agreements that have been also made by Riek. And our agreement is, it is older than the one of Riek's. So the whole agreements that create peaceful environment in the Republic of South Sudan must be respected by the government of the Republic of South Sudan, as well as Dr. Riek himself.
Some residents of Pibor have reacted to the news of the current disagreement.
Greater Pibor Administrative Area is in support of peace in the country, and whoever wanted to attempt reduction of Greater Bibor, the youth of GPA, which is Greater Bibor Administrative Area, will never support this person's decision.
Another area of contention is Abyei, which is claimed by both Sudan and South Sudan since 2005. Khartoum and Juba agreed for it to be managed jointly in what is known as Abyei Administrative. Roweng is another area in dispute that is claimed by two communities. President Kiir says to avoid violence in the area, he has designated it as an administrative area as the government tries to resolve the conflict over its ownership, but time is running out. The United Nations mission in South Sudan is calling on the main players to form a new government as scheduled and only then solve the problem of states and boundaries together. But so far, there is no breakthrough.
Zimbabwe's central bank announced on Monday it would maintain its official lending rate at 35%. It also projected the year-on-year inflation will close at 50% by the end of 2020. A Southern African country is experiencing its worst economic crisis in a decade. At the end of last year, inflation stood at more than 500%. Faraya Nwakutuya has the details from Harare.
While presenting his 2020 monetary policy outlook, Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe Governor John Mangudya said annual inflation, which is estimated to have peaked at over 500% last year, will drop to double figures.
In January, we're expecting inflation to be 12% and below, 12 and 13% below. We expect inflation in February to be around 80%. We expect inflation in March to be below 5%, continuously up to the end of the year when it's going to hit 1%. On the basis of those month-on-month reductions, we expect inflation to be around 50% on a year-to-year basis.
The Apex Bank plans to inject more cash into circulation and introduce higher denomination bank notes. That will bring relief to thousands of clients who are still enduring long queues to withdraw restricted amounts from the banks.
There was also welcome news for hundreds of international creditors who've been battling to get their locked-up funds out of the country owing to a foreign currency shortage.
730 applications to release blocked funds worth $1.2 billion are due to be paid by the end of February, which will allow the country to continue receiving crucial services.
That we need to respect our obligations. If we don't respect obligations, what will happen in this country? People don't supply again. Why do you think IATA or Emirates will fly to Zimbabwe when we don't pay them the $60 million? Why do you think South African Airlines will fly to Zimbabwe when you don't pay them?
The central bank has maintained the lending rate at 35% and says the focus of its monetary policy will be on stabilizing the exchange rate and managing inflation.
When we return, international news. Boy Scouts of America files for bankruptcy over mountains of sex abuse claims. And later, sports. Nigeria, 35 others for the Taekwondo Continental Olympic Qualification Tournament.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. On the foreign scene, in the early years of Russian President Vladimir Putin's rule in 2004, the government seized a major oil company, Yukos, and jailed its owner, businessman Mikhail Khodorkovsky, for what the government says were unpaid taxes. The saga had continued in the court since. Now, an international appeals court in the Netherlands has ordered Russia to pay $50 billion in compensation to shareholders of the former oil company. The ruling by the Hague Court of Appeals says Yukos unfairly lost tens of billions of dollars in revenue after returner Khodorkovsky was jailed and his company seized. This ruling reinstates the 2014 court order of compensation that was overturned during an appeal that favored Russia. The court said the decision was not correct and that the arbitration order is in force again. Russia's Justice Ministry says it would file an appeal against the decision. It says the court had failed to consider what it called the illegitimate use of the Energy Charter Treaty by former Yukos shareholders. That treaty was not ratified by the Russian Federation. Khodorkovsky, who was freed in 2014 as part of a wider amnesty ahead of the Sochi Games, said on Facebook he won't financially benefit from the decision, but that he celebrated the outcome anyway. Beijing's Haidian hospital has resorted to assigning a robot in treating coronavirus patients. Hospital medics say the robot had been a huge relief. They say the robot had been trained by medical workers and had been deployed for a week now. It goes around restricted wards where suspected and infected patients stay.
The robot, nicknamed Xiaobao at Haidian Hospital, goes around restricted wards where suspected and infected COVID-19 patients stay. Remote controlled by healthcare workers outside, the robot delivers medications, takes temperatures, and spends a lot of time telling patients about medical precautions. Medics say Xiaobao, after just 1 week on the job, has been a huge relief.
We were under huge pressure 2 weeks ago when we first admitted 8 patients infected with the coronavirus. To tend to them wellness, we need to spend a lot of time with them and several times a day closely monitor their situation, take samples and answer their needs. I was very worried about whether our team was protected enough.
But the best thing about the robot, Dong says, is that doctors and patients can now speak through Xiaobao much more than they did in person.
The dilemma before was that you wanted to spend more time with patients, but more time means more risk. Now we speak through Xiaobao easily for half an hour or an hour. The patients are no longer anxious, neither are we.
The hospital is among the first in the capital city to employ the robot amid the outbreak. It is also experimenting with uses of disinfectant robots and other service robots, all to minimize the danger that medical treatments put medical workers in.
We know that the longer someone spends with a patient, the more danger he or she is in. And the closer someone gets to an infected person, the greater risk he or she is in. The sicker the patient, the more dangerous the situation. Think about all the procedures health workers go through. They are faced with the biggest risks.
Also put into trial in Hubei province, it's hoped that the likes of Xiaobao might take even more heavy loads off health workers' shoulders.
French ambassador to China has pledged his country's support to the Asian country in its fight against the novel coronavirus COVID-19. Laurent Billy said his country will send more supplies to China to aid in the fight. The ambassador made the pledge during a television interview with China Central Television CCTV in Beijing on Tuesday. Early in the outbreak, France arranged 2 special planes to take a large number of medical protective equipment to China and to help French nationals in Hubei province return home. The Boy Scouts of America has filed for bankruptcy. This development is not unexpected as the organization faces at least 300 lawsuits from men who say they were sexually molested as scouts. The organization is seeking a Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection to figure out how victims would be compensated. During this period, scouting programs would not be affected. The group hired a law firm in late 2018 to explore the possibility of filing for Chapter 11, which requires that a debtor set up a reorganization plan that would enable its business to continue to function while it pays its creditor over a period of time. In an open letter to victims of abuse, Boy Scouts of America National Chair Jim Turley expressed his outrage. The individuals, quote, took advantage of our programs to commit this heinous act, end quote. He apologized on his own behalf and on behalf of the entire scouting community. He said he was sorry and devastated that, quote, there were times in the past when we failed the very children we were supposed to protect, end quote. Turley encouraged victims to come forward to benefit from a trust that will be created to compensate those who were abused.
Up next, sport. Nigeria gets ready for the Taekwondo Continental Olympic Qualification Tournament. Please stay with us.
Welcome back. This is ANN News Sport. World Taekwondo Africa has confirmed Nigeria and 35 other countries for the Continental Olympic Qualification Tournament kicking off tomorrow. Former president of the Niger Taekwondo Federation, Jonathan Naji, has been named as part of the competition supervisory board to oversee the qualifiers. More than 100 athletes from 36 countries are expected. The event is the only opportunity left for African nations to qualify for the Olympics. Arsenal former boss Arsene Wenger, who is now FIFA's head of global development, is proposing a radical change of the offside rule that could be introduced in time for this summer's European Championships. The offside law has been put under greater scrutiny in recent months following the introduction of VAR technology, which has seen goals ruled out because a player is deemed to be millimeters offside. Wenger wants to change the rules so a player is ruled onside if any part of their body that can score a goal is behind or level with the relevant defender. That is the news this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on these and other breaking stories, visit our website, annafrica.news. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Have a pleasant evening.